Good morning, everybody, and welcome to our pre-budget process for 2025. The federal government is seeking your input, and I just wanted to go through step by step on this. Okay, so let's take a look at what our Canadian government is doing. It's pre-budget consultations. We're going to go step by step right from the website. I put it onto slides. And it's called Your Budget, #YourBudget 2025. Again, this is an educational series. I am not a YouTuber. I put my email in there. If you have questions, like or subscribe. Please, if you find it useful, I'll keep doing, and send me an email if you want to see another topic. And if there's something you don't like or something that you think I've got wrong, by all means, your feedback's always appreciated. Okay, so there's the link. Probably if you just Google Canada 2025 budget, it'll take you right there to the federal government website. And when you click on the link, you end up here. It says pre-budget consultations, your budget 2025. All right, so let's see what they're asking. Okay, so it's open. Okay, we're finally going to get a budget after government's been prorogued in an election. And, you know, the upsetting thing, I guess, for me, and I don't know about you, is that the government could spend at will, you know, which we're in a 44 billion dollar deficit, and then the Liberal budget is another 35 billion, and the government is promising to balance the budget. Well, how do you do that? How do you do 77 billion and balance it? You know, balance in what? In a year, in a day, in 30 years? I mean, you know, what's the future for our young people? Anyways, enough of my soapbox. Which, you know, this is going to lay out the government's plan for unprecedented challenges facing our country. At least they're seeking consultation, okay? You know, we haven't had this in a long time. It's you know, basically been stakeholders, you know, influencers, advocacy groups, those sorts of things. But we have a chance here to have our real input. Okay, so you know, here's the nice message. It's going to catalyze, you know, our investment or economic growth, you know, and spending less on day-to-day operations. Well, I don't know, with all the announcements, oh, we're going to fund our, you know, NATO, we're going to build up our army, oh, we're going to develop in the Arctic, or, you know, we're going to do this or that. I don't even think the Liberal platform of 35 billion is going to cover it all, to be honest. And our population base is very small for the amount of taxes we pay. So they're calling this pre-budget consultations. They're an opportunity for us to share our ideas and priorities. So join the conversation, it says, and you have to submit it by August 28th, 2025. That's when it closes. Formal submissions, at the end of the questionnaire, it says formal submissions, including letters or papers, can be sent to this email address or by snail mail. The survey only takes 5 minutes, and my concern about it, as you'll see, is it's guided. Okay, there is a chance for other input and stuff like that, but let's take a look at it. Let's get into it. Okay, so here's your first question. Building a strong and united economy. You're only allowed 3, so, you know, select your top 3 priorities. Reduce interprovincial trade barriers, advance nation-building projects such as pipelines, electricity grids, and other resource initiatives on an expedited basis. Stimulate investment in clean technologies, reduce emissions. Help more Canadians train or retrain for new job opportunities. Promote competition to drive businesses to improve productivity, product quality, and prices, and help small businesses grow by making it easier to get loans, grants, tax credits, training programs, entrepreneurs. Support the younger generation with affordable education, apprenticeship opportunities, co-op placements, and internships. I believe, you know, these items like education and that, I think that we're doing that already. I think Canada does that very well. If you really want to go to school, you can. It would be nice to maybe, I'm just going to give you a real life example. Medical school, you know, some of my son's colleagues had to go over country to become a doctor and then come back. And he was fortunate enough to be able to train in Canada. So my issue with this is Canadians should have priority, and foreign students. And I'm not against immigration. I think we do have to build our workforce, but I would like to see vetted immigration and people that can afford to be here and share our values. We're Canadian, to keep us united and not fractioned. Support the younger generation. Again, that's in twice. Sorry, we've got that. Address the federal budget deficit. Well, that needs to be there. Debt sustainable for future generations. Maybe our young people, can't even afford a house right now, which is, ludicrous. Support Canadian industries. I believe more in a freer market affected by U.S. tariffs by helping them adapt and diversify. Yes, I suppose some transitional aid as we're pulling away. Establish a new economic and security relationship with the U.S. Yes, we have to have that. We've always had it, and I get tired of the political rhetoric between the governments. Strengthen collaboration with reliable trading partners. Absolutely. I think we relied maybe too heavily on the U.S. in the past, but typically when you're close to somebody, your border, the cost-benefit analysis, it's easier to do business. What I kind of thought was North America, form an alliance, and not NAFTA or whatever they're calling it now. But we should, we could be a force such as, the European Economic Union, which is crumbling a bit there. A top priority here is to reduce the interprovincial trade barriers, absolutely, for me. So you're going to have your own. Click 3. If you don't click 3, it won't allow you to go on. Okay? Okay, what are the most important ways the government of Canada can help Canadians in their day-to-day lives? I did another here, because I just think I didn't like any of the questions. Increase the supply of affordable homes, make existing housing costs lower. I think if our government would spend more appropriately and not prorogue government in that, and not allow mass migration that's unvetted, we wouldn't be in the state that we're in. And that's just my personal opinion, okay? Of course, we all want lower housing costs, lower taxes, bring down costs for everyday essentials, food, medication, gas. Of course, we want that. Make jobs, skills, and training more accessible. I think we have so many agents out there that are delivering job training services. Just check in your town, Work BC and all of these places, and it's available. If you're determined and you want to do it, it's affordable and available. That's been my experience. If it hasn't been yours, by all means, please let me know. And, depending on where you are, that's been my experience in British Columbia and Central Canada, across the country. Okay, improve access to health services, including mental and dental health. I think, yes, absolutely. I mean, it's so expensive for dental care and mental health care and the waiting lists and stuff like that. But I also think we got to regulate some of the mental health when you see what's happening to people on the street, because people are ill, but people are dying and people are being harmed. So if that means including involuntary into an institute, yes. Make it easy to save for retirement. Well, I think we are. I think it's pretty easy. I'm not sure how you would make it any easier. Perhaps no caps. I know the government, they've enhanced the CPP because some people have more faith in the government than their own. That's questionable given what's happened in the last few years. But I think you can save retirement. It's can the cost of inflation stay down, interest rates stay down, so that you're able to save. So you have to deal with the economy to deal with this. Advance reconciliation with Indigenous peoples. I think that we're there. I mean, the Truth and Reconciliation Commission wrapped up in 2015, and here we are, 2025. What's really changed? It all needs to be settled. No more court cases. It's hurting people. I'm First Nations, just so you know, full disclosure, Lower Smoking Indian Band. But somehow we all have to come together on the table. And I think BC is very advanced in this area compared to other provinces I've lived and worked with and experienced discrimination. And I think that it's time somehow to move on, and we can still recognize the pain and stuff like that, but Indigenous peoples, we need to stand up, we need to move forward, and we need to work together. Because reconciliation with Indigenous peoples, the recent court case, someone sent me an email in the Lower Mainland there, the Cowichan tribes. I mean, that's taking land away, is being appropriated. How is this going to happen? So it's my belief that we come together on this. Okay, it is challenged by the province, the ruling of the judge, and say, okay, well, look, if this is traditional territories, we still have to give those people that have devoted their lives, their whole investment, a way, an avenue to keep that land. And maybe we're coming to the era where reserves are going away. I know a lot of First Nations, we have partnered with government. We've signed away our tax rights because we recognize we use the tax system in Canada, we use the hospitals, we use the roads. We don't have the infrastructure. This is a long conversation for another day. I just believe we need to settle reconciliation. And how does that look to all parties involved? Okay, one race is no better than another, and when people are wrong, you don't overcompensate, I guess. Work to end systematic racism. This is always going to be a challenge. The trouble with social media is it's always in our face, okay? And again, you guys, this is a pre-budget consultation. I don't know why these things are in here. These are things that should be dealt with in the social system, social inclusion, and that sort of thing. And racism is always there. Racism and discrimination will always be there. We can go back to all the wars. We look at the Second World War. The Jews and the being burned. In the camps. The death camps, and that's racism. So when you are a multicultural nation and you bring people from all of this that have experienced racism, the trauma is real. Always we should stand up for what's right in all nations. And I don't know that we have to spend endless amounts of dollars in these areas. I think there's a better way, because clearly they're not doing their job if we're at the point that we're at today. Support Canadian workers impacted by U.S. tariffs. Little support is always possible, and given that the Canadian government is making decisions that maybe the people don't agree with, and the political rhetoric back and forth, I guess they have to take responsibility. The problem is we all pay the taxes, whereas if they could work together, and it's not easy, it's never easy. So, okay, let's give them a shot. I did, again, and filled in what I thought. So you may want to, I'm probably commenting more than I should on this. It's not meant to be political. Just want you to really think about answering this questionnaire and what it means. And what are the costs? So what's your highest priority when it comes to Canada's defense and security? I mean, we've known for years we've got to invest in the forces. That's one. Recruiting more RCMP and CBS personnel to strengthen our borders. Make bail policies stricter. Yeah. Completing firearms buyback program. I don't know that that's ever worked. I don't, too much government control, I guess, is my concern when I read some of these things. Signing comprehensive defense agreements with allies and diversifying partnership. Of course, that's a key. We're in a global world. No one can deny it. We're not an island. We can't live on our own. Investing in the Arctic? Absolutely, we should invest in the Arctic. It's beautiful, and it just makes sense. It's our sovereign territories, and not only that, but trading in ports and economy makes good sense to me. Make dual use investments which serve defense as well as civilian readiness, such as airports. Well, that just makes sense. That's economies of scale. Why aren't we doing that now? I guess is my question if we have to put that in here. Building up our defense industries, improving defense procurement, and option 10, whatever that is, and other, please specify. You know, we are going to feel the tax impact of increase in spending because the United States has put pressure on everyone that they've got to spend to their budget. And we should. We signed an agreement, the NATO alliance, and that we would contribute this much of our budget. We should. But with that commitment and that comes, how do we pay for it? So what is the one suggestion you have how the federal government can support your community? And really think about this and put some time into it, because this is important. Through enough voices, you know, we can make a difference. And maybe we're a bit passive, and maybe we need to be a bit stronger in our advocating the government to, you know, keep Canadians first. Okay, we can't support every other country, and who supports us? Like all these money that's been committed, and you just look at our population and wow, you know, how do we support that? We're not a large powerhouse economy like the United States, you know, like Mexico, even like, you know, larger countries, China. We're a very small country. We're committed, but we don't have, the government cannot use our bank account as their bank account. So I encourage you to really think about this and send something in. So pre-budget consultations again. Here's the last few questions to understand the results still. As I said, a lot of the ones before, I don't think it matters whether you're a man or a woman, you're an Indian or whatever you are. And I'm an Indian. I'm from Lower Similkameen Indian Band, not First Nation, because we're equal, not above or below, we're equal. Now, the last few questions, province you're from. Again, I feel, okay, I'm being profiled. BC is one of the most expensive provinces to live in. And outside of Canada, well, I don't even know if I would want to tick that if I was living outside of Canada, because they say, oh, well, you don't count. You know, all these thoughts go through my mind as I feel you're being profiled. But, well, if you're outside of Canada, it's not really affecting you, so maybe that doesn't matter. Or maybe there's a reason you're outside of Canada and want to come home, and maybe those are the comments. You know, it's just simply unaffordable. Okay, which of the following age groups, again, profile demographics? I think they can use this data, you know, for their campaign base and that sort of thing. I tried not filling in some of these things, and it wouldn't let me. You've got to fill them all in, okay? And then how do you identify yourself? I'm a woman. You know, to each their own. Okay, do you identify as the following? I did put in there I am a First Nations person, Indigenous person. Again, I'm not sure of the importance of this, other than I feel like they can use these stats for their political campaigns. And who are they, you know, posturing to? And what capacity did you complete the survey? I completed as an individual. It talks about the owner of a business, representative, you know, a business is representative of not-for-profit charity, other. Again, why is this important? You know, if we're voting, let's not be lobbying or political. And let's not try to find the slant on it. Well, the owner of a business, of course they want free market, of course they want this or that. The idea is submit these questionnaires, the data is clean, and this is how the people of Canada really feel. So which of the following category best describes your household income? I hate it when they ask this question. Again, it's none of their business. I just put under 10,000. That's probably going to skew the results. I don't even think they should ask this question. You know, I don't see the purpose of it. So once you click that submit button, you get this questionnaire. But what I want to do is I'm going to go one more step on this. As we saw at the beginning slide where you can do a formal report, I am going to submit a formal report, and I'm hoping that you will also. I'm going to put, I've got goals, I've got concerns that I want to write down, and how the budget can be streamlined and how they can truly help. And a lot of you will probably even know a lot more. Each of us in our own fields, we see things different ways. So I would encourage you to go the formal process, do the questionnaire, before the 28th if you can, and let's get some input into the government so that they don't have Canada Revenue Agency coming along and trying to push through capital gains tax when it hasn't gone through the royal assent process in Parliament and been approved by the government. So they had to back down on that. Know your rights. Seek out the advocate groups that represent your interests. And I know some people may want to remain anonymous, especially what happened after the protest with the truckers and that. I know in my formal submission, I'll be putting in there that the government of Canada does not have the right to stifle free speech, and it shouldn't be sending money on legal battles against its people for freedom of speech. It shouldn't be throwing ministers in jail. It shouldn't be seizing bank accounts. It shouldn't be throwing truckers and protesters in jail. The charges for me were just ridiculous, and yet you see all these other protests going on. But if you're grassroots in Canada, perhaps, I don't know why that rolled out the way it did, but it's a pretty frightening experience. So do the best you can with what you got, but rise up. It's your country. Our opinions, our diversity, our differences, it's what makes us great. And the most important thing is that we can talk about these things together. What's important and why we've had enough without everyone being so offended. That's the most important thing, I feel. Anyways, you guys have a great day. Hope you enjoy it. Talk soon.